What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is another pilot review for Bodkin. It's currently on Netflix. May or may not be a limited series. Doesn't really matter anymore. That's just a formality for shows. They're talking about doing a second season of Shogun. So, who cares whether something is intended to be limited or not at this point? So many limited series keep getting second seasons. It's ridiculous. So, if you want a second season of it, just keep watching the show. Maybe it'll happen. You know, this stars Siobhan Cohen and Will Forte. It has audio description written by Dakota Green and narrated by Jamie Lemchek. And it's set in Ireland. So that's cool. It's about some podcasters who team up with headed on her way to be a disgraced journalist. In the process of, at least in the first two episodes, she's not like full on disgrace, but there's some stuff, you know. And her boss is sort of like, podcasting's big, we got to get in on this true crime stuff, so I want you to team up with these people, and because of this thing, you're really in no position to argue with me right now. So she's stuck with these podcasters trying to figure out what happened to these three missing boys from years ago. And of course, she has sort of a style that is very akin to a normal reporter, get up in your face and get the information. And Will Forte's is much more like laid back and sort of like, oh man, that's really amazing. Oh, why don't you tell me more about that? That sounds really cool. It's kind of amazing to see how their different approaches to things are. It's so weird that Will Forte is in this series, but then again, I think about like how he was in Sweet Tooth, and dude just likes to pop up in shows. I'm not even like, because he does that, I'm not even like fully convinced that he's a star of the show. Like, he could end up getting killed off in a couple episodes and it wouldn't even surprise me at this point, because he's not in all of Sweet Tooth. He's only in season 1 of Sweet Tooth. So, yeah, it's, he's expanding his horizons. And since this show is dramatic, more than it is comedic, he's expanding his range and what people will get used to seeing him in, the kinds of things that people will get used to seeing him in. So I thought it was pretty good, the first two episodes. I'm not like jumping up and down, but I feel like there isn't necessarily a thing about this that makes it wildly different than other shows that we've seen before. It is kind of about the mystery and the characters, and whether or not that gets sold is something that'll get answered by the seventh episode. I've seen a lot of like mediocre TV series, and I've stuck with more than I promised I wouldn't. I've stuck with some mediocre TV series a lot longer than I should have. Shows that I haven't really enjoyed watching, and at least this doesn't feel like it falls into that category for me. So I'm not like dragging along trying to finish out, trying to figure out what happened to these boys. The mystery does seem to be, substantial enough. There seems to be some sort of a cover up, and people just, they get really cagey and they don't want to talk about it, and it's a nice setup. So I'm not gonna lie. And the audio description, again, Dakota Green, Jamie Lemchek, it's a great team, and they work well together, and it works great and it sounds great. So can't really fault the series for that. So yeah, I'm enjoying the series thus far. I think you will too. The audio description is fine. It's a mystery, so as long as we're getting the clues that we need to be able to follow the show, that sort of is the primary function, because we're following the mystery. I think about things like, it's Ireland, so it's pretty, right? That would be our first thought. For anybody who doesn't live in Ireland, we always think about the how amazing Ireland supposedly looks and feels and sounds, and beautiful, and all that kind of stuff. However, this is sort of a darker series, so I'm less concerned with that. I'm less concerned with like the beauty of the area, and more concerned with people's mannerisms, somebody's reaction to a question, um, the little clues that you're supposed to pick up along the way that help you, so that way when they call back to it later, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was weird. Those are the things that help shape out a series like this. Character descriptions to some extent, sure, because there are a lot of people in this town. However, there are a lot of people in this town, so you're going to run into a lot of people in this town that they're going to talk to inevitably for like 5 seconds, and you'll never see them again. So character descriptions when necessary, sure. And it's hard to tell at this point because they keep running into random people. And while it seems like there are like a handful of characters that are going to matter in the end, I don't know how many of these other random small characters that he just bumps into. And it's like, oh, hey, did you happen to know so and so? I don't know how many of those characters are ever going to matter again. So it's hard. If they were just there to provide some context or some color to the plot, it doesn't really matter what they look like. I don't think that could have been anybody. I'm never going to see them again. It's all about what is integral to the plot of the mystery, but also not revealing too much, not revealing your hand. It's a weird show because it's one really that you should, I would think if I was doing the audio description for this, I would have to watch the entire series and then go back and think about audio description, because I'd have to think about like, okay, so I know I have to talk about that because that was important for that to happen. And that ended up being really important in the end. So we want to make sure we point out that, so for example, in the second episode, something that's really minor, but they went out of their way to point out that could end up being something that they end up pointing out later. They're in the library, and the girl that is Will Forte's assistant has sort of broken into a library. She's kind of hanging out, and they thought the library was empty, but it's not. There's one more lady, and she comes in and she grabs a book and leaves, but she comes in through one door and then leaves through another. Now, I don't know how important that's going to be later on, but it was very specific that she did come in through one door and then exited through a different door. So what's behind door A and what's behind door B could matter later on in a different episode when we have to remember, oh yeah, there was that extra room. Where did that room come? What's in that other room? Where does she come from? Those are the kind of things that I just don't know, because I've only seen the first 2 episodes. So, yeah, just want to get the reviews out for you and let you know that I think so far, at least, this is worth watching. So, I'm going to give Bodkin a B+. I like the show so far. I don't think it has reinvented the wheel in terms of, but I think it's done a pretty good job of setting up the plot and the characters, and introducing me to this little world. And we'll see whether or not this is a show that is like a limited run thing, or whether or not they feel like they can give it a second season. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.